Thanks again, Deborah. Houston's Archway Academy is a zero-tolerance high school living out hope for its students. The school was featured in the documentary called Generation Found. Here's a clip about Archway.
A lot of times I feel like adolescents get written off.
Nothing had tackled the issue of where do these teenagers have to go.
It was so hard to try to figure out how much of this is the teenage behavior and how much of this is a problem.
We started asking questions like, where do you feel the lowest self-esteem? School. Where do you have the most access to drugs? School. Every now and then, a city will have this experience. It almost sort of feels like an epidemic. And all of a sudden, the community kind of wakes up. Instead of ignoring the problem, we really start looking at it. And it's painful to see. I think in Houston, part of how we were able to create this beautiful continuum of care is because we just got really, really tired of watching kids die.
Instead of being Generation Lost and Generation X and all this other stuff we call them, man, Generation Found.
Carson McCullar just graduated from Archway Academy here in Houston. He is courageous enough to embrace who he is and share that with us tonight. Although he is only 18 years old, he has had a 6-year battle with alcohol and drugs. Carson is willing to walk with anybody dealing with addiction. It is my honor to introduce my friend, Carson McCullar.
So my first job isn't one that I would put on my resume. I was a drug dealer. Now, as interesting and maybe even as exciting as that may sound, I can say that I have no respect for that lifestyle today. I started smoking pot at the age of 11 and ended my addiction as an intravenous heroin user at the age of 16. Just for context, my mom would, unknowingly of course, drop me off at play dates that I would go and get high at. I grew up in your traditional Christmas card family with all the support, love, and care in the world. I had been playing sports all my life. I had a very strong friend group, and I even went to church every Sunday. You know, the whole nine. On paper, I was made to succeed. But whenever it comes to addiction, it doesn't matter who you are or where you're from. Addiction does not discriminate. At least it didn't for me. I'm not exactly sure how it all happened. But before I knew it, I had isolated myself from my friends, my family, and all my loved ones. My use of drugs and alcohol had permeated all areas of my life and took them all away. I no longer had an interest in academics, a social life, or really anything that wasn't drug-related. More personally, putting these drugs in my body quickly put a disconnect between me and God. I lived in this sick routine fueled by the want to get high. So much so that almost everything that I did had something to do with me getting high. I would wake up an hour early every day before school just so that I could get high. The only reason I even went to school is because I knew I needed an education to get a job that would support my drug use. I stole from my family, I broke into houses, I dealt drugs, and I trashed relationships with people that didn't like seeing me go down this path. And this was all in your typical weekend. That pot that I had smoked when I was 11 years old was no longer this weekend occurrence. It was a lifestyle made up of even heavier drugs and me hurting myself and those around me. This process went on for 6 years until my parents forced me into recovery. To put it simply, I hated them for getting in the way of my drug use. More so, I resented recovery, probably because it hasn't always been so easy for me. I've been to inpatient rehab 4 separate times. I've been in countless outpatient programs, and I've been kicked out of Archway more than once for times that I couldn't stop getting high. I was actually what members of recovery refer to as a chronic relapser, meaning that for a long time, I was caught between my desire to keep going with my drug abuse and remaining sober. The last time that I used drugs was before an AA meeting that my parents had forced me to go to. I remember going to the restroom high just before the meeting, looking myself in the mirror and thinking, what the hell, man? What are you doing to yourself? Why can't you just stop? In AA, we call this a moment of clarity. Just for a few seconds, I was able to actually see what I was doing to myself. And those few seconds stuck with me. This road to recovery has been the hardest thing that I've ever done. But here's what's amazing. Not a single person ever lost hope or gave up on me, even whenever they had every reason to. The men and women that I surround myself with today are nothing short of absolutely badass. It takes true grit and guts to look into yourself and to find a new beginning. Looking back into my addiction, I can see God in a lot of those moments. Every fight with my parents and every rehab visit, God's work showed up through the love of others around me. I may have lost all hope for me, but God never did. And if it weren't for the loving community that I had grown up in, there's a chance that I might not be here today talking to you all. This is what I want you to know. It's that even whenever you may feel like your life is in shambles or that God has abandoned you, there's always a light at the end of the tunnel. Somewhere in your life, there's a facet of hope, and it will find you. For me, that hope worked through my friends and family intervening with my addiction. You see, it wasn't my hope that saved me, but it was God's hope, working through my friends and family that just never gave up. My relationship with God today is one of clarity. Not necessarily always understanding what He may have planned for me, but really just understanding that He does have something planned for me. When I think of the word hope, my mind instantly jumps to the word freedom. My first legitimate taste of freedom was the summer before my junior year at Archway Academy. I can remember that first concrete glimpse of hope, celebrating 30 days of complete abstinence from all drugs and alcohol. Everything that I had once pushed away slowly began to return, as it was promised to from day one. I just graduated from Archway Academy, and even more recently, I got to celebrate 2 years of continuous sobriety and recovery. I can proudly say that I'm not only a survivor of drug addiction, but that I am a conqueror. I get calls and text messages daily from other men and women in the program of Alcoholics Anonymous looking for hope whenever they may not have enough for themselves. And it's kind of funny, but God's brought me full circle. Today, I'm still a dealer. Only today, I don't deal dope. No, we're a lot past that. I deal in hope.